Welcome to Changing Suits. We're your hosts, Bao.
And Taj, discussing the latest news, views, and general life for us Western Asians.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bao.
And my name's Taj.
Welcome to our number whatever episode. I don't know what number, which is why I didn't fill that in. Today we are going to touch on a bit of a serious topic. Sexual harassment. This isn't going to be funny. Just as a pre-warning, we always have the odd joke here and there. But I don't think this one's going to have that. So if you're looking for that, please switch off now. No, I'm joking. Okay, all right. So, sexual harassment. Women in the community, people generally in life. This is a topic that has become more and more prevalent in the news, especially over the last few weeks with what happened with Sarah Everard. A number of, since the Me Too movement, it's just exploded. But where does it start from? Let's go back to our good old school days. You can join in any time you want, by the way.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was all about you.
Or most things are, but no, it's not. I was just waiting for you to pipe in at some point because you usually interrupt me at some point.
So. Yeah, I'm a bit relaxed today. Anyway, so basically, I
Yes.
think there's quite a lot of layers and dimensions, should I say, to this topic. First of all, let's start from school, like you mentioned. The good old plucking the girls' bras. I think it was secondary school that it started. And everyone would laugh, ha 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 ha. But if we look deeper into that, wouldn't you call that sexual harassment? The person whose bra was getting plucked, no one considered how they felt. Because everyone else was laughing, you would be in that situation where you'd be like, okay, I better laugh because that's what's expected of me. And it was never mentioned about it was never mentioned about, I'm sure teachers knew it happened. It was never brought to the forefront.
Yeah, but it never happened in front of teachers, so you can't really blame them either.
I'm not blaming them, but they must know that it does happen and it's a topic that needs to be discussed.
And the funny thing is, you tend to know which people are not capable or are more likely to do it, should I say, than others.
It's the jokers, it was the in crowd, wasn't it? The in crowd used to do it and everyone used to watch. I'm like, okay. But no one used to step up. Because the environment.
Yeah, but doesn't that sort of... Yeah, but then this sort of goes on with what's going on now. I mean, you look at the Me Too movement and, what's happened with, what's that guy, Saville, whatever his name is, Saville.
Jimmy
I was
Saville,
watching a bit of a documentary. Yeah, that's it. There was a woman, I think, I can't remember where I saw it. I saw it a few weeks ago, but this woman, basically, he was on, did he present Top of the Pops? And this girl was sitting in the audience. She was quite young at that time. And he was on camera touching her. And she, in this interview that she had just a little while ago, she's like, I felt really uncomfortable. Like, literally, it is in front of the nation. But everyone would laugh at it. So it's the same sort of thing. Whereas now, if you look back, it would be like, why on earth would you laugh at that? She's obviously uncomfortable. But it became an okay thing. Firstly, because he was famous, but also, surely he's not doing anything wrong. Whereas if you look back at things, it's like, actually, no, that's not right, is it? Same thing with the school thing that you're talking about.
Well, I think that's what it is. Back so many years ago, and it still is. I'm sure it still goes on now. Things, when it's accepted in the crowd, then you just laugh along with it. And the person, like I said, that's going through it will think, okay, maybe what I'm feeling isn't quite right. Maybe I shouldn't feel uncomfortable and this is normal behavior. But if this isn't stopped from an early age, are we almost building that the plucker of the bra, setting them up to be tomorrow's rapist?
Okay, so one thing that we said earlier was, you can tell what I said, you can tell which person's going to be the joker and that ends up doing it. But you always hear it's the quiet ones that you wouldn't have expected to be that rapist that is, the Jack the Ripper of, whatever town. It's always the quiet ones, in which case we can't really say, oh, it's a Joker. They're doing it out, in public. It's very public. Not that that's right either. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that. Let's go on to it being socially accepted and stuff like that. For example, I remember when we were younger, it was acceptable for relatives to hug. Now,
Can I just, okay, sorry. I wanted to go back on a tangent on the other one because I think I was going to say earlier, and we'll go down this route in a bit. But one thing that I've always found interesting is with the Jimmy Saville and all these other cases, they thought it was normal. So it was okay that what they were doing. So we then end up looking back in time and saying, no, that's wrong. But then we were sort of pushing them and they were pushing back and carrying on because people laughed. So they just carried on. So is it right for us to then, years later, say, actually, what you were doing was wrong? When at that time we were laughing.
But they were doing more behind closed doors. It wasn't so much out there in public. It was behind closed doors what they were doing. So I think.
But do you see what I'm saying? Now there's this whole Me Too movement, and this is what I've been thinking over the last few years. When this was, and I put this in speech marks, accepted, and then now we look back at it years later, and we're saying, actually, no, that's unacceptable. You should be going to prison. Is that fair? And by the way, I'm being devil's advocate because I do not agree with it.
But what about Prince? What's his name? Well, I'm going to hope not to get the wrong Prince, but the one that's been accused of all the
Andrew.
yeah,
same
Andrew.
thing.
And he was my favourite Prince as well, to be honest. Such a wrong
Why? Because you're a pervert?
No, I didn't know he was.
Well, allegedly a pervert, should we say?
Allegedly. Well, look at that. He's got away with it.
Not yet, because he's got a case going on in America.
So yeah, but pretty much he's got let off in this country. So it's still happening. People in high places. And that's what it is. People in prominent positions are still allowed to get away with it, even in the community. For example, it happens. You can't point to one community that happens. It happens in all communities.
But then I know where you're going with this, and I'm going to bring it back again.
You're really bringing it back today, aren't you?
I am, because, once my trail of thought goes, it goes, as we know, forever. But what I was going to say, in regards to people in high profile places, and we allow it to happen, that with what happened with Bill Cosby a few months ago, that just shows money can buy you freedom. And that's exactly what happened there.
Oh, it did with him, didn't it?
Yeah, there was a loophole in what happened, and now he's out of jail. Nothing's been said about the fact that he actually did do those things. It was pretty much, he was guilty for it. But because these loopholes on the legal side of it, we don't hear mention of him now.
And that's why people don't want to come forward, because they don't know, will it go back on them? Will it be thrown back at their face? What will come out of this? Will they be blamed for it? And that's so wrong that it still happens.
Well, apparently I was reading some statistics a little while back. 98%, I think, was the figure of cases are dropped.
Wow.
For people that are saying that they've been raped. 98.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. And then you ask, is there a point? Because 98% is not a small figure.
But I think it should be done, because you don't know. If you don't do it, you might, that person will go on probably doing it to other people as well. So if you don't step up.
Yeah, but 98%, if they do not get a conviction, you might have stepped up. You've ruined your life. Your life has been ruined.
But then where does it stop? How does it stop? And like with this Sarah Everard case, but with this case, if there wasn't this whole big push from everyone, it would have just been swept under the carpet. But it can't be, because people are up in arms about it, and rightly so.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, that police officer was called a rapist as a nickname, and it was laughed off, and everything was funny, and it was okay. The lads' culture. So yeah, you're right. So had it not been such a big thing,
And see the lads' culture in the school thing that we were just talking about as well.
mm,
It being acceptable, and yet it goes on in different places, the grown up world, it still happens. So yeah, stomping it from school age.
yeah, but how? Because a culture is still a culture. What are you supposed to do?
Education. Everything seems like the root cause is education,
Okay,
and explaining to males
let's
to
go.
respect women.
Okay, let's go back because I've interrupted you a number of times, and you're about to go on a tangent, but I never let you today.
You're reining it in today.
I am, because I think this is a topic that
A hard one.
you mentioned about relatives earlier. Go for
So
it.
yeah, when we used to be younger, we used to have relatives, and our parents would be like, "Oh, give them a hug, give them a hug," and they wouldn't say it out of that, out of horrible anything like that, and vice versa for the relatives. But you hear so many stories of basically sexual harassment with people that are close knit, and you would never have expected it, because people are like, "Oh, it's a hug, it doesn't matter," and that's where it comes from. The parents don't,
But
you
does it?
know.
But the tough thing is, and this comes back to it, in the
I mean, you
community,
can't
we
go
are more
around
aware
accusing
of it.
everyone. Yeah, you can't go around accusing everyone, but a majority of these sexual harassments and stuff like that that happen with children are people that are close to the child, people that you wouldn't have expected ever, or even accused of, not even the slightest would have expected it to happen.
But the thing is, this whole hugging a relatives is usually a side hug. In the Asian community. It's very, it's done quite a lot. It was done quite a lot. But because the awareness has been raised, and I think we had this discussion years ago, where it's a case of, why, if the child doesn't want to hug, we shouldn't be saying, yeah, you should hug. But then when we were being brought up, this was never, yes, it was happening, but it was never as public, and it wasn't a movement.
People, yeah,
It wasn't a
people weren't
movement.
aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, like now my daughter, we don't, if she doesn't feel comfortable hugging someone, then we don't make her do it, because we shouldn't. It is about learning to, allowing the child to think, okay, if I don't feel right, then it is the right feeling. If you feel uncomfortable, then you're right to feel uncomfortable, then you don't need to do something that you're uncomfortable with.
But
And I
then,
think that's important.
okay, so this brings up another really interesting point of, we're talking about hugging, a side hug,
Mm.
right? And the whole principle of what we're saying is, if you're feeling uncomfortable, it's your personal space. Da, da, da. The other tough thing is looking back at some of the things that we've discussed, of the plucking of the bra and all that sort of stuff. It was, would you consider it a sexual harassment? What is sexual harassment?
I wouldn't have at the time,
Mm.
but now looking back at it, yes, I would.
What's changed?
Because now you see, from at that time you wouldn't have considered the person that was going through it, their feelings, and you wouldn't have considered your own feelings, that your feelings matter. It was more about, everyone's laughing about, I should be laughing about it. I think, yeah, the awareness has changed it, and that's why I'm saying education is important. I think it should, in schools, and parents or carers, etc., should focus in on, yes, your feelings matter, what you think is right. If don't let someone tell you, if you feel uncomfortable, you're wrong to feel uncomfortable.
Well, as you've been talking, I've just googled the definition of sexual harassment, and it is, you're pretty much spot on. Sexual harassment is unwanted behavior of a sexual nature which violates your dignity, makes you feel intimidated, degraded, or humiliated, creates a hostile or offensive environment. So it does. It's not a definitive of, this is what sexual behavior is and this is what it isn't. It is how you're feeling.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's about feeling, and I think that's what the, should we call it, the predator would play on, because it would be a case of, no, I'm not doing it. What you'd make almost the victim feel that they were feeling the wrong feeling, and I think that's what they work on,
Mm.
making the victim feel what they, their uncomfortableness is something that's wrong with them, what the action that they're doing isn't wrong, it's the person's feeling that's wrong.
And that's the tough bit,
I
because
mean,
feelings are feelings.
yeah. And it's like, for example, we were going to go on to communities and prominent people in the community, leaders, etc., people of power, people of trust. They're in those positions because, for example, religious leaders, and this is across all the board. I'm not picking on one particular religion. It's all across the board. They're in that position because they're in a position of power, authority, and they're there because you expect them to do right. And when they do wrong, I think the victim feels like, okay, they're there for a reason. I must be wrong. What I'm feeling must be wrong. So the person, the authority figure, the community thinks that they're in the right place, they're there for a reason, respectful, they give guidance. And when they do, I don't know, sexually harass, rape, etc., the victim's is made to feel that they're wrong, and they question themselves, and they think, okay, am I feeling the right feeling? Is there something, you'd be in a position where you're like, okay, maybe I'm not feeling, maybe I'm just imagining this. It didn't happen. This is wrong. Okay, let's pretend it didn't happen. And sometimes you block it out of your mind.
See, just this podcast is making me, all the podcasts make me think a bit deeper. And just the fact that with that definition of, we've sort of established that it is a feeling. And I think you're right. People take advantage of the fact that feelings can be subjective. And that's where the issue is. So, and that's where the tough thing is, the fact that it's subjective. But then why do you think, I mean, with the case of Sarah Everard and the fact that he was acting, at that point it was acting because he was in plain clothes, as a police officer, why do you think that's caused such big uproar? And it has.
Because again, it was a person in authority, someone that you trust, someone that is there, that is meant to help you and protect you, not be the predator. And
But
all of
then,
a sudden,
okay,
it's like a devil.
The reason I asked the question is because every so often, every few weeks, there's always, I have a news feed that comes up on my phone, and every few weeks there's a story of, oh, in this community or in this religion, this has happened, but it's just left there. What
Because
is the difference in the case of it was a police officer versus it was a religious figure?
Because religious figures, they're there to guide you in a spiritual way.
But then why are we not making more of a big deal?
Because in communities,
it's become normal. That's what the issue is.
Because in a community, you don't want to be the person that outs, because if you are, you might be attacked for outing, because the community might not accept what you're saying, because there's so many people behind that one leader or authority figure that you'll be scared that they might attack you, and then your name in the community might be tarnished. What you're feeling is wrong. Will your family back you up? I'm not saying that happens everywhere, but even maybe the victim might be questioned. Okay, will the family question whether it is the victim's fault? Did they lead them astray? This prominent person, this leader wouldn't do this. They're seen as such a high person in the community. Why would they? No, there might be something wrong with my son or daughter. They might have misled them. Or maybe they must misunderstood the actions. Maybe they're dirty minded.
See, in the Asian community, this is a very big thing, right? What you've just said. And that's why a lot of people find it hard talking about, because their feelings are subjective, about sexual harassment or abuse.
Yeah.
What can we as a community do? And it's very easy to say education, because education's the easy way out, right? We can say it. But
I think communities worry about it going public. So if we're worried about, any community worry about it going public, then why not deal with it within the community? because if something's dealt with in the community, then it does cause fractions, and something will happen. If you don't want to take it out of the community, then we'll deal with it in the community. Then it won't go outside. Your community
But
won't
this
look
is
bad.
but this is the problem. But this is the problem. It's not
Mm.
being dealt with in the community. So isn't the best route of action then to out the person in because your community is not listening to the rest of the community, the rest of the world?
I think it is important to report it to the police, because if there is child abuse, any sort of abuse, you can't just say the child one, but if there is, then definitely that should be told to the police, reported to the police, should I say? Because you don't know how many people have been in that same position, and you don't know how many people in the future will be in that same position. You need to stop what's happening. And it must be the biggest step in the world to actually say, actually, this is happening. But then it might be that Me Too movement where if one person in the community says it, then other people will start thinking, hey, they've said it, they've had the courage, maybe I should come out as well and have that courage as well.
Do you not think, though, that the pressure within the Asian community is such that if you were in your early 20s, maybe earlier than that, or even later than that, and you said this, you perhaps wouldn't get the reshte that you would have otherwise,
So the marriage proposals, I
the
think,
marriage proposals.
yeah, it would affect that. And that is another reason why parents probably wouldn't want their child to come out either. Because it would affect, because you would in the community say, hey, is there something wrong with that person, the victim reporting it? Maybe they, like I was saying, maybe they misled this prominent figure.
Well, the other thing is, it comes down to if they have been raped, then they sexually not
Well, this
what a
this
virgin, I guess.
yeah, this comes back to one of the episodes that we done on marriage, and how when we look for a marriage partner in the Asian community, we all act as if the other partner is pure. And in this day and age, I don't think that's always the case. But yeah, the person is tarnished. They've been raped, so they're almost being used. So yeah, would you want to marry a used person? And that's horrible to think like that. But yes, that is what happens. And that is one of the reasons, out of many of the reasons, why a person wouldn't report it or tell anyone around them, carry on suffering.
How would you overcome that? Because that is not a small issue. That this whole topic isn't a small issue. But
Well,
within the
there,
Asian community, because we can't then turn around and say, look, our parents would accept that, look, this has happened. So their main focus, and this isn't, this is going to sound a bit controversial, but in most cases, hopefully most cases, your parents want the best for you over the worst for not the enemy, but the person that's the attacker.
yeah, the abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there are
it's a bit of
organizations
a tough
out
one.
there. Yeah, but there are organizations out there that will support you and help you even to break the news to your parents, because they've been in this, they've seen cases like this, so they know how to deal with it. They know how the repercussions are in the Asian community. So they'll be able to support you
Mm.
through that. So yeah, maybe contact some one of those, yeah, an
No, I
organization
agree. I
that's going to
think
support you.
the amount of awareness and the organisations out there covering this topic is it's been such a positive effect. I mean, I've seen it on TV sometimes when they talk about these cases. To be fair, I don't want to listen to these cases anymore. I know that's just burying my head in the sand, but it's true. I do bury my
It's
head in the sand.
it's because we don't want to see that there's this horrible other side to humans. You sometimes you just don't want to face that. And that's another thing, actually. Maybe parents don't want it, and the community don't want to face this horrible thing that's happening in the community, because you can't deal with it at an emotional level. You can't deal with it, and you block it out. Like I was saying, the victim, they may block it out as well because they can't handle what's happened. I remember when I used to, this wasn't in the community, but this is my first place that I worked at. I was sexually harassed. I didn't tell anyone about it, But I pretended that I was ill and I never went back to that workplace. It's because you don't want to break it to people around you, because you don't want to be seen as the person that, I don't know, the victim doesn't want to come out, basically.
See, when the Me Too movement happened, and you'd have a celebrity popping out and saying, "Oh yeah, it's happened to me," and then another one would come out and say, "Oh, it's happened to me." It did shock me that so many people were coming out and saying it happened to me too. I don't know.
You're
Does
trying to
it
say
then?
it felt more like it's the in thing to be the one that was harassed?
That isn't a politically correct thing for me to say, but I was just shocked. This is what I mean. I was just shocked that so many people were going through it. That's what I thought.
And the sad thing is that they went through and everyone was keeping it to themselves, and how much that must have affected their mental health. It does ruin people's lives.
But again, it brings it back to the fact that, devil's advocate, do you also think that people were jumping on the bandwagon, celebrities, for example, saying, actually, yeah, I've been through this as well?
Well, that's the horrible thing, because there have been cases of where people have reported to be raped, and in actual fact, well, not always, they haven't come out and said that it hasn't happened to them, but they have been false allegations. And this is the cruel thing. Those false allegations make it harder for the actual allegations that are true to come out.
Yeah.
They make
Yeah.
it harder. So there might be cases that aren't true, but it's so out of order if they are coming forward and it's not actually true.
Does it then also become a bit of a, and this is me again being devil's advocate, an ace card?
As in to
If you
sell
don't
a
want to deal
story.
with something,
Yeah.
it's I got sexually harassed. Do you think it's
What
the
do
ace card that people will hold?
what do you mean
So
by that?
celebrities that perhaps, so is it a card that you can use so you can get more publicity?
Well, yeah, you don't know, that might be the case in some cases, but not, you can't say that for all. But hey, it might be. And like I said, with the rape cases, the ones that aren't real, it just makes it worse for the people that are. And for the people that are reporting real, sexual harassments, rapes that have actually happened.
Do you know what? I was reading something earlier today. It was about, I don't know if you remember this, but it was a program when we were younger, One Tree Hill, I think it was called.
Yeah, I remember
Do
that.
you remember that?
Yeah,
Okay.
should I admit
So
it? But yeah.
the girls that are on that series, or whatever you call it, have come out and said the producer sexually harassed them. All of them have said it.
Wow.
And that was a really bad set to work on. And there was something I was reading on there. And so all of these girls were very young, they were new actresses. So they were just like, okay, so this is just
Better
the
get on with it.
norm.
Norm.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the norm.
Again. Mm.
So you get on with it. And it's making me famous. It's doing what it needs to do. Should I be saying anything? But there was an older actress on there, and she had done a podcast conversation with these girls, and she was like, "I feel really bad. Had I known this was happening, I should have stepped in." Da 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 da. But do you think, as I was reading it, do you think she didn't know, or it became accepted, like we were saying earlier?
But the question is, would she have actually stepped in? Because
Exactly.
maybe the thing is, when you're in that situation, you think, okay, is it right to step in? Would she have heard an odd case and be like, oh, you're being a silly little girl?
Yeah.
You don't know how you're going to react in that situation. Hopefully, you won't react like and brush it off, and you will support the person that's the victim. But really, in that, you don't know. And these girls just accepted it because, like we said, it was the norm. And many of the cases, like we're saying in, for example, the prominent leaders or whatever, that the people that they sexually harass, the victims, they just think, hey, I'm not going to tell anyone because it won't be what I say won't be accepted.
Well, the other thing is, where with the R. Kelly case, a lot of the women, now women, were girls. They were underage girls at that point. So again, we're putting the age thing in there. You know, that One Tree Hill, they were young actresses. The R. Kelly victims, a lot of them were underage girls. So on that side of it, are we just saying, yeah, it's little girls just complaining?
No, because it happens to boys as well.
Yeah.
We have to understand that it happens to boys as well. But I think at the vulnerable age, adults taking advantage of the situation, that's the worst thing, because they know that it is an age where hormones are everywhere.
But is
And
any
like,
age, this is the problem. I don't agree with that statement, because at any age we're all vulnerable. If
yeah,
you're
we are all vulnerable, but
in physically, most people are stronger than me, to be fair. So I'd be physically vulnerable. So it's not just the age thing. The point is, it's that vulnerability that is really hard hitting in this conversation, because if there wasn't that, I'm not going to say weakness, but if that sort of thing wasn't there, then that person wouldn't be trying it on, because it just wouldn't
So
happen.
are we saying then again it's to make the victim more
That's
stronger emotionally? I didn't think of that. Yeah, make the victim again what we've been saying, believe in your feelings, be ready to say no is, it isn't right. I'm going to stand up to this. But then if you're in a position which you mentioned about that One Tree Hill, that the girls, they were doing it because they wanted to get more established in the business. So maybe that's what they thought. In all, we have to put up with this to get higher in our careers, and if we don't, maybe this will knock us from our career.
and this is something that happens quite a lot, regardless of whether it's celebrities or actresses, or it happens in everyday life. But going back to something you said earlier, most rapes and sexual harassments happen to people that are close by, and it's not a status thing. So
Yeah,
why are we finding in our communities that that is happening?
because it's embarrassing. Like, for example, maybe I didn't answer the question quite right, but maybe the family don't want to accept it because it's embarrassing. You've let this person be a part of your life and be so close to your children, and it's that element of you can't believe that it's true, because you've got that trust in that person so much, you just can't believe that they could do that to your child,
Okay,
your
and
family.
this brings me back to sleepovers. I
Yeah.
don't know if my kids are very young, so I don't know if that's still a thing. But when we were younger, there'd be sleepovers. Other friends would sleep over. That is the whole point of sleepovers. Would you? Is it a norm now? I don't know. Do people do sleepovers still?
I think, yeah, it is a norm. People are doing it, but I remember in the Asian community, you just wouldn't do that, and especially a girl wouldn't do that. And as girls get older, even sleeping around a relative's house, you'd have to make sure that you had a female relative there as well. You wouldn't just send them if there was just males in the house, or if there were older boys and teenagers, because hormones are running wild.
See, I don't, and I suppose it comes with age where you start thinking about this. But I remember when I was a bit younger, and this kind of conversation happened, where you wouldn't have an older man or boy and a younger one. And this always made me feel a bit icky. It's just like, seriously, why are you even thinking that?
What do you mean?
Why would you even consider, if they're relatives, that that sort of thing would happen? But now we've grown up, and the stuff that you listen to, crap that happens, I get it. But it's such a sad world where you actually have to think about that.
It's people's warped minds, that's what it is. But like, coming back onto sleepovers, my daughter was invited to a sleepover a couple of years ago, and I was thinking of actually sending her. I remember you having a go at me, my friend having a go at me, and I thought, actually, you're right. Because you, in that position, like, children, for example, don't know how to react, and you just accept that it's normal, and you shouldn't. I wouldn't send my child over for a sleepover. I don't think there's anything wrong with sending them over a party or something like that, but not a sleepover.
See, you say that even with the parties, but you get those reports on the news where, and this freaks me out, and I don't want to freak anyone out that is listening to it, but there's been a few cases where you send your child into a park or a soft play, and there's been an adult in some of the apparatus, and that freaks me out. It's like, where are they safe then?
Yeah, but if we freak ourselves out that much, we'll never end up going anywhere. I mean, if we think percentage-wise how much this happens, I don't think it's a large percentage that happens. So it's like crossing the road. More accidents happen. Like, no, sorry, it's going on the aeroplane. I should use the right concept. It's going on the aeroplanes. There's more road accidents that happen than aeroplanes. It's that sort of concept that, you know, you need to live, basically. You can't always have this fear in your mind that this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You'll never end up doing anything. Or it does happen, you need to be aware of it, but that's what we're saying. We need to educate our kids, etc. They need to be aware of it, but you can't stop them doing everything in life. Otherwise, you'll just be a hermit.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the other thing is the conversations of your privates are your privates.
I think that's
with
important
kids.
to have. And one thing that I didn't realize that I was doing, and me and my husband did have a discussion about this, was just I was talking to my kid, and I just say your privates, and we should. And I was surprised my husband said this. Actually, he said you should talk to them as like the vagina is the vagina and the penis is the penis. You need to name the real body parts. It's important they know what they are.
I swear I
And
had this conversation with you. It wasn't your husband that you had this conversation with.
no, I had it with him as well, and you, and we had it
Okay.
in a previous podcast.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure this is the same conversation we had.
Deja vu,
You've just,
deja vu.
you've just forgotten that I'm not your husband. But yeah, no,
That
we
would be
actually
weird.
had a talk. We had a talk with the kids' school, and it was one of those. Is it PSHE or something, or whatever it's called? So they were going to go through conversations like this and how you talk to kids, and you get these invites, and it's going to be a Zoom meeting. It's like, oh, great, I better get go into this meeting because they might say something important, but we know it's a waste of time. But I have to say, the person presenting was so good. I was literally on the WhatsApp group afterwards saying, "Oh my god, that was such a good Zoom meeting. Whoever missed it, you really did miss out." That sort of thing, because it was that conversation of you should be naming the parts. Now my kids are 4 and 6, and I wasn't calling, and the person presenting wasn't scared in saying, "Hey, that's a penis, that's a vagina." They were very open, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And now I have completely changed from, "Oh no, this is your pee-pee," because that's what we called it, to saying, whilst they were having a bath, I'm like, "That's your penis, and that's your bum, and whatever, that's your vagina." So I did actually say it, and it's really interesting because the kids were like, "Yeah, okay, whatever," and they carried on playing. Whereas I built it up in my head of, "Oh my god, it's a penis, it's a vagina. This is going to be, if I mention it to them, the world's going to stop." But it is important, and the story that the presenter had told us was like, "Oh my god, why would you not be telling them?" So it was basically someone had said, "Oh, this is your teddy bear or something," and
Oh god.
someone that they knew then said, "Oh, can I play with your teddy bear?"
Oh
And so
god.
this child has gone back and said, "Oh, that person's playing," and you can see where this is going. Whereas if they had taught the person of saying, "Oh no, this is the vagina," then it would have been a very clear-cut conversation.
Yeah.
So the parent had actually encouraged it, not realizing, because it
But
was a
that's because
communication
that's
problem.
because us parents are scared to use the words because it is embarrassing, and there's this whole thing about, oh, we don't want to use that word, it's embarrassing, it's shy and stuff like that. And I think I've almost overcome that barrier now because I've spoken with people about it and had open conversations and stuff like that, whereas before I was like, oh my god, I don't want to say the V word, I don't want to, that's embarrassing, ha ha ha. But if we, like, again, normalize using those words and don't have the laughy thing behind it when we're speaking to our children, it will just be using, like, here's your arm, here's your leg kind of thing. But
Here's
obviously
your
they
penis,
need to
here's your
use it.
vagina. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to use it. You don't want them, I don't know, you being at a wedding and them shouting out penis or something
Okay,
like that.
so okay, wait a second. So the other part of this conversation was, yeah, the kids might run around and say penis, penis, penis for that day, but they're going to forget by the next day. And it's true, kids are kids, right? They've got better things to think about than at that point, hopefully, their penis. But yeah, it's a good point. So what if they do? Surely the fact that you've just opened that communication barrier up with your child outweighs the fact that they're shouting at a wedding, penis.
Yeah, that is true. Very true. I think that's what we worry about, the embarrassing side of you don't want your kids to shout it out or etc. Or even our own personal embarrassment of saying those words. Because, yeah, it's just what's being built up in our communities. And I don't even know what the Asian words or the Punjabi
Oh,
words are.
any word you say that you don't recognise is probably the
That's
word
true,
for.
actually. I
We know that
remember
because we've yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I remember when we were younger, you used to just rhyme random words, and you're like, our
And
mum
Mum would
would
like,
be like,
Chopagad. It's like,
"Don't
what?
say that! Don't say
And
that's a
then
rude
and then she'd start laughing.
word." That's true.
Ah.
But just now going on to that's body parts, but just about safety on streets. Let's go on to that. It's kind of just completely going on to a different area, but I think an important area.
Can I just I just
You're
want
going to
to
reel it in, aren't you?
I am I wanted to say one thing before it goes on to just remember the subject you've said. At what point do we discuss with our kids? So we've mentioned body parts. Now we understand that sexual harassment is down to feelings. At what point are we now going to introduce the fact that if you're feeling uncomfortable, you should speak out? And that's a different topic because it's not definitive, it's subjective again.
I think it should be at any time. If you're not feeling comfortable, just say, I don't feel comfortable with the hug, with this. Who cares if it makes the other person feel uncomfortable? Because they're making you uncomfortable. So what's wrong with it the other way around? I think we worry about too much about the other person's feelings.
I do agree actually, because like if I'm hugging my daughter, she doesn't like hugs. She doesn't like it me kissing her. I mean, I don't get it. What was the point of me having kids if I can't hug them and kiss them? But she has said no, don't do that, and I'm like, okay, fine, I won't, because it comes down to that thought of, okay, you obviously don't. That is your barrier. I can't be
Yeah.
doing that.
Mm.
So is that conversation? I do agree. It needs to be open. Of oh no, I don't like it. That's it. That's the end of that conversation.
To be honest, yeah, because my kids are huggy kissy or whatever, and I have realised your kids aren't, and they don't like it, and it in itself is a big step as well. Thinking, okay, they don't like it, I need to step away and not do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you're so used to, with your kids and stuff like that, doing the hugging, and you need to respect that.
yeah.
And I've had to learn to do that as well, to be honest,
Mm,
because different kids have different barriers basically, and we need to learn to respect that.
yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with
Even
that.
if they're younger and you're like, oh God, they're the cutest thing in the world. Well, okay, they're the cutest thing, but they don't want to be hugged and tickled and etc.
Mm,
That's another thing, another learning, I would say, for us adults as well. Even if a child is that cutest thing in the world, we need to respect.
that is a good point. Yeah. Okay. Moving to the subject that you're going to touch on.
So, safety on streets, I was going to move on. And I know this is turning into such a big topic and still not deep enough. We're not talking about the areas but I don't think it will ever be deep enough. Yeah, walking on the streets like late at night. And this is another big thing that's being questioned in loads of areas. I know in the area that I live in, the council put out there, what areas don't you feel safe in, and they're trying to bring in lighting and stuff like that.
Oh, that's good.
Whether they do it or not is another thing, but I'm sure they will. But yeah, I think that's important. And what would you say? Do you go at night or any time in the day, and is there situations that you felt scared, and what's
Yes.
made you feel scared?
Yeah, no, I have I think that's my only thing in my memory where I can say actually, yeah, I did feel uncomfortable.
The only memory you have of anything, we should say.
No, I did. I remember our house wasn't that far from the train station, but there were times where I'd be walking back at night and it was dark, and you'd go down our road and it's just like, oh, shit, sort of thing. And it did worry me. So you'd walk a bit faster, and there wasn't anything there, or I was lucky that was, but that would freak me out. Or if there was a person behind me or in front of me, I'd always have that thing in my head of, oh, actually, I'm feeling really uncomfortable in this situation. But again, I think councils have had a good wake up call with what's happened, and hopefully, positive things do happen. LED lighting, for example, it really illuminates
Oh God,
areas,
that wakes that wakes everyone up.
but it's really good. Plus, it saves
Mm.
money, so it's excellent for councils. But things like this are really important now with what's going on after the Sarah Everard case. There was a case. I think there was someone that said, "I know I'm moving back, and you want to come in on this subject." But we shouldn't. If we're approached by a policeman or woman, we shouldn't be stopping. If that whole conversation of, it's your fault for stopping. I mean, that conversation's only happening now. Had the police stopped me, I would have stopped and had that
Yeah,
conversation.
anyone
It's
would have stopped
ridiculous.
because it's an authority figure. You're going to stop. That's, the police, they stop you, they search you. So I don't think you can blame anyone for stopping.
Okay, so going back to the subject, the street safety. What's your experience with it?
So yeah, I've been many occasions. I don't really go out late at night now, to be honest. I think the fact that I haven't been, and on the odd occasion when I have been, I feel even more scared of it. Because obviously, if you haven't done something so often, there's the fear factor. But I remember when I used to come back from uni, and it used to be dark, and you would look around you, and any noise, you'd be like, oh my God, is there something there? Is there someone there? If you hear someone walking behind you, like, okay, where is that person? How far are they? What can I do? Can I run fast enough? Have I got a key in my hand,
Mm.
to hit them, whatever you need to do with it? And you do have those thoughts.
And this is why, I mean, I've been thinking about joining self-defense classes for quite a while, and I have joined one quite recently. And the other thing that came in my mind was, so this is with this class, it's the kids have a class, and then the women have a class on their own. And my kids actually came and sat and watched, and I'm like, this is actually really important. I know I've said this on another podcast where I want my daughter to see the fact that I am doing this, because this is for her safety as well. She needs to learn, and he needs to learn, because boys and men are also getting sexually harassed as well. They need to learn to defend themselves as much as they possibly can in situations like that. I mean, even today the kids were fighting like crazy, and she was really punching hard, and we didn't really stop her. It's a case of, well, she even said, I'm defending myself. But to be fair, she wasn't defending herself. She was the attacker. But it did make me smile, the fact that we've obviously said that, where it's a case of, well, if someone hits you, defend yourself. Don't just sit there getting hit. And I was sort of happy in hearing that she sort of used it against us. But
But again, I don't know, have crimes got worse than what we were when we were younger? Or is it because when we were younger we didn't have that fear factor, and as we get older we hear more about the crimes and how bad things are? Things were happening back in the past, weren't they?
yeah, but I mean, I was laughing with my husband a few weeks ago, where we sit on the sofa in the evenings, just like, we need to watch the 10 o'clock news. I hated the news before, whereas now you need to finish your day off and find out exactly what's been going on. So it's, it was possibly always there. Obviously, it's been raised by movements like the Me Too movement, which is fantastic. But because we're sort of putting ourselves in the position of hearing about these issues, it's obviously going to be more prominent because of that, I'd
Do
say.
you think that younger people put themselves in more risky situations because they feel that, I don't know, that
Well, see,
it won't happen to them?
this is the conversation, though, isn't it? So you always hear on that, the other side would be, oh, you should dress more appropriately, or you should act more appropriately. Well, we've already said that most of the cases are domestic, and it happens in countries where, putting in speech marks, they dress more appropriately. So I don't agree with that. I don't think we should ever be blaming the victim. I know I've said a number of things in this podcast where I have been the devil's advocate, where I'm going to listen to when I'm editing this, think, oh my God, how could I say that?
Mm.
But I really do agree that if you look at the facts, you can't blame the victim. But
that is what we hear quite a lot of, and even people judging, they say, oh, she shouldn't have been wearing a short skirt, she shouldn't have been wearing revealing clothes.
Well, the person shouldn't have been a pervert, but hey, where's that in the conversation?
That is true. And that I don't think that gets highlighted enough, isn't it? Quite a lot of the times the woman is blamed for if she was wearing a short skirt. Well, yeah, what about the crazy person that actually, attacked the victim?
It doesn't matter. And this is the thing, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. Like, if your mind is that way inclined, and you're going to do it, it doesn't matter what the person's going to be wearing.
Totally agreed.
So on this point, I think it's really, and I'm going to repeat what I said. I'm going to say it one more time. The victim cannot be accused of encouraging this sexual harassment. Completely. And I just, there is no other two ways about it.
So, for example, going back to walking down the street, a man may ask, say I am a man walking on the street behind a female that's by herself, how can I show her that I'm not a threat? I don't really know how to answer that myself, but do you think you can, Belle?
Well, I think the tough thing for a lot of men when we talk about sexual harassment is, oh, you're a man, you have no other option but to be the enemy in this. But
that is true.
If you look at how many men supported, I think it was the Me Too movement and what happened with Sir Everard and so many other things that have happened. There are a lot of men that are raising their voices. It's just, how do we teach our sons and daughters? Because let's not forget, I know through this whole podcast we've looked at it very much one way. It's the man versus the woman, and it's the woman that's a victim, but that's not the case, and that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, it does happen the other way around, but obviously we hear more about women because men, I suppose, maybe a lot of them don't report enough. So one thing a man may ask is, how can we show that we're not a threat?
And that's a question that we're going to leave for the listeners. Let us know how we can answer that. Because this isn't a one-way conversation, is it? Because men also need to be involved in this conversation. There are so many organisations nowadays that can help. And I think that's where I want to leave it. If anyone has been through sexual harassment or rape, there are organisations that can help. You need to get in touch. And on that point, thanks for listening. My name's Val.
And my name's Taj.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.